I'm sorry, I have to, start from here, second video, right? So in Japan, the quality of Japanese, some people believe that, revisionists actually believe that, quality of Japanese workforce was different. They were well trained and very diligent, and there was a lifetime employment. So you can be very loyal to a particular one company in your lifetime. There were cultural norms of diligence. Japanese people were very diligent and work very early and stayed at workplaces until very late. Teamwork culture, collective culture, right? Collective culture is the kind of a symbol of the Japanese companies. And group collectivism and so forth were quite key to Japan's economic modernization. Let me take an example of MITI. As one of the sources of the Japanese economic miracle was MITI, Ministry of International Trade and Industry. Right. So MITI is a kind of economic bureaucracy, but not a bureaucracy of economists. MITI is specialized in international trade and industry, but the main members of this organization was not the economists. This is just a pilot agency that specialized in this area. But in this organization, Japan's brightest and smartest people actually went to MITI, and there was a greatest concentration of the brain power in Japan. And they always think about the national interest first instead of the personal interest. So when you become the bureaucrats, what is your personal goal? Promotion. Later on, I want to be a minister and great politicians, and I want to accumulate my wealth. I want to purchase an apartment with the salaries and so forth, right? But interestingly, the bureaucrats in this organization always put the national interest first instead of their personal interest. And this MITI actually played a crucial role in industrial policy. In Japanese term, it's a Sangyo Seisaku. This is industrial policy. There are two types of industrial policy. First one is Sangyo Gyorika Seisaku. Seisaku is a policy. Sangyo is industrial. Korika is a rationalization. So remember, under the market economy, if you follow the market logic, competitive companies will grow and uncompetitive companies will decline, right? But that's the nature of the market economy. But in Japan, MITI actually played a crucial role in rationalizing the market situation. They effectively stepped in and tried to nurture some possible and competitive industries while discouraging the uncompetitive industries. That is the part of rationalization. They also intentionally transformed industrial structure from light industry, labor-intensive industry, which is quite popular in developing countries, to heavy industries. That is which is quite strong in advanced economies. Second policies, industry policies like this: Sangyo Kojo Seisaku. Sangyo means industrial. Policy, Seisaku is a policy, and Kojo is a structure. Right. So, structure readjustment. Government actually stepped in. MITI stepped in and played a crucial role in structural adjustment of the businesses during this kind of economic development period. So this is MITI Usually MOF, Ministry of Finance, is the strongest agencies in government because they have money, right? But in case of Japan, MITI, all the size of bureaucrats are smaller than Ministry of Finance, and monetary resources were smaller than Ministry of Finance. MITI played a crucial role in economic miracle of Japan. There are three ways to implement industrial policies. First one was bureaucratic control. MITI played a crucial role in bureaucratic control with controlling the market with the regulations. And civilian self-coordination. They push the civilians to coordinate or collaborate with the government regulations voluntarily. And also, MITI actually induced change the civilians and businesses behavior in indirect way. For example, we call it administrative guidance. Administrative guidance is like this. Every year, for example, in many Asian countries, labor unions actually protest against their businesses to raise their salary annually. But in Asian countries, in particular in this case Japan, Ministry of Labor, for example, or Ministry of MITI, International Trade and Industry, actually announced its administrative guidance. Literally, it's a guidance. They don't force the private companies or labor unions. So, what is the administrative guidance about the labor protest in the summer, in the spring? Government announced that this year we encourage each companies to raise their salaries up to 5% only, not more than 5%. We are not forcing you, but this administrative guidance play a crucial role in changing the behavior of labor unions and companies in Japanese context. They faithfully followed this administrative guidance. So, although this administrative guidance is not, forced to private businesses, they faithfully and voluntarily follow this administrative guidance. Of course, not all people agree with this kind of theory. For example, one of the famous Japanese economists, Sakakibara, actually argued somewhat different things. For example, he believed that Japan's success was not the government intervention. He believed the rise of private sector actually was the sources of the Japan's economic miracle. What does that mean? He believed that the rise of dynamic professional managers. Previously on the Jaibatsu companies, right? So family-owned companies, family member, no matter what your capacity is, as long as you are family members of these Jaibatsu groups, you can be the CEO of this company. But from around the 1950s, Japanese businesses has been changed a bit because professional managers who were educated in business started to occupy the CEO position in Japanese corporations. So he believed that it's not Jaibatsu family-owned enterprise anymore. It's a Keiretsu. Keiretsu is run by professional managers. Okay, so because of the antitrust law, owning the Jaibatsu group become very difficult in Japanese context as well. So Keiretsu hired professional managers, and that is the sources of the rise of private sector, which contribute to the Japan's economic success. That's Sakakibara's argument. And also there was a rise of workers and engineers in Japanese society that also became the sources of economic miracle. So overall, the rise of private sector contribute to the success of the Japanese economy. So I think and this is quite important observation about the Japanese firms. Of course, Sakakibara also do not deny the national led growth. So he also agreed that, hey, MITI and other Japanese businesses Japanese government agencies played a crucial role in nurturing national economic growth. But still, what you have to look at is the rise of dynamic professional managers. So we have a balanced perspective from different scholars, different from different angles. You may see that, oh, this argument may have a kind of a good made a compelling argument about the Japanese case and so forth, right? Understand? Now let's take a look at the South Korea's economic modernization. I believe the core of Korea's modernization depends on the trade and export policies. Right after the Japanese independence from Japanese colonial rule and Korean War, there were nothing. What can you make? What can you sell, right? But Korean government actively pushed the trades and export to foreign countries. Firstly, by focusing on the labor intensive. The making shoes, clothes, textile are very labor intensive. So, Korea's economic miracle, Korea's modernization started from this kind of a textile industry exporting to global market. So this kind of industries use the governmental subsidies to private firms, and that money, the sources of money, actually depend on the domestic savings. And this kind of trade policies and export policies started from the early 1890s. Japanese actually companies came in, and they pushed the textile industries. Now there's a Korea University. The founder of Korea University was the textile industry company's CEO during this period in 1920s. And Korea effectively utilized the uses of the comparative advantage under the International Division of Labor. So Korea back then didn't have advanced technologies, right? They couldn't make heavy industry, they couldn't make automobiles, they couldn't make electronics and so forth. Textile was the kind of affordable and possible solution for the Korea's economic level. But no matter what the level of the Korea's companies, government strongly pushed the trade policies and export policies and provided subsidies to export-oriented industries. So now Korea's economy heavily depended upon the exports. I think one of the top world economy that heavily depends on the exports, and openness to U.S. market was quite substantially helped the Korea's modernization. Who want to purchase the third world countries' products, but Korea, because of the security situation in Korean Peninsula, Korean company could access to the U.S. market. So, and second, the investment policy after the trade policy, government actually decide to determine where, when, how much, how much to invest in which industries. It was the government agencies who evaluated the possibility of the economic growth of the companies. Also, the government actually borrowed money from the Japan and U.S. and kept the domestic interest rate very low, so that the companies could borrow the money at very cheap interest rate. And this kind of low interest rate actually motivated more investment. There was a kind of a good cycle. And also, Korean government introduced the foreign capital inducement law, so that if you want to invest your money in Korean market, Korean government actually provided many preferential treatment to these foreign capital investors. And also, government actually provided a credit guarantee. So let's take an example. You are a very small company and you are making like a notebook, but nobody knows your brand, right? And you are export oriented company and you want to sell this relatively cheaper notebook to US market. But from US perspective, who want to purchase this unknown brand notebook, right? If I purchase this notebook, what if you fail to meet our requirement? In this kind of situation, Korean National Bank actually guaranteed, we guarantee this company. This is a good company, so you maybe purchase this notebook to your market. Government guaranteed this kind of export, and it worked, right? Almost all Korean companies get the benefit from this kind of action, investment policy. So all policies were, uh, government's discretionary basis, and this become the basis of the emergence of the Korean chaebol. And also government successfully invested the social infrastructure to support business activities. So you can see this, POSCO Korea, Pohang Steel Company in Korea. Now its full name is POSCO. This POSCO was established with the Japanese concessional loan, but it became the number one in the world steel company. Shipbuilding, Hyundai and Samsung and Daewoo Company is number one or number two. Number one is now, it can be it used to be, Korea used to be number one, but because of the rise of Chinese shipbuilding, it became two, but now they return to number one. So just shipbuilding, Korea is number one. Oil and electricity, Korea is quite competitive in this area too. And this was possible because of the government support and the government active investment in infrastructure. So Korea, it looks like this, right? Busan is here, and Pohang is here, POSCO is here. So if you import some materials, or if you actually successfully secure something, raw materials, you may have to send to Seoul. But Korea, as you can see here, 70% of Korean territory is mountain areas. Under this kind of circumstances, government, although governments haven't invested a lot of money in this kind of infrastructure, they decide to build expressway, Seoul Busan Expressway. Gyeong means Seoul. Seoul Busan Expressway, and as you can see, very wide expressway. So trucks and many cars that could easily travel to South Korea. It actually helped a lot of these companies to make a business trip to Korea, Seoul, and it became the sources of this kind of infrastructure investment become the sources of economic miracle. So and Korea, unlike the Japanese firms which experienced the professional managers, Korean chaebol still dominated by the family members, but still, these Korean chaebols actually occupy the crucial position in the whole Korean economy. Samsung actually occupied the 16.4% of GDP. Hyundai Motors is 9.7, SK 8.4, 6.4 by LG, Lotte at 3.3%. So Korea is very heavily dependent upon this kind of chaebol companies, and so we cannot ignore their voices, right? This is a latest Bloomberg assessment. And unlike Japan's MITI, Korea also has a similar pilot agency. We call it Economic Planning Board. So, Economic Planning Board is a kind of a core government agency in the economic miracle. It actually orchestrated Korea's industrial economic policies. This EPB, well, Singapore has a EPB too. So their functions is quite similar. This agency was created in 1961 and headed by the Deputy Prime Minister. It's not headed by the minister. It has a Deputy Prime Minister. It established a 5-year economic development plan from 1960 to 1963, but there are many, more than 5 times from 1967 to 1973, right? This kind of series of the 5-year National Economic Development Plan actually set the standard for economic growth, and the government strongly supported economic development under this kind of a 5-year economic plan. Every year you set up the new goals and make a concerted effort to achieve that kind of goal, right? And this 5-year economic development plan formulated all economic plans. And this agency allocated resources to selected firms, selected areas and firms. In particular, which companies? Export oriented. And they directed the economic functions of other central ministries because top priority was economic growth. So this agency actually pushed other government agencies to support this economic growth and trade. And this agency, like Japan's MITI, this agency is a kind of a collection of highly educated intellectuals. So in Korea, if you want to become a bureaucrat, you have to pass the comprehensive civil servant exam, and many smartest Korean students take that exam. Once you pass the exam, you may choose your job or field, and usually the smartest students choose this finance field, which is related to finance and economic track, which is related to this economic planning board. EPB used to recruit the brightest and the smartest people among the civil servant group in Korea. So if you look at this kind of sources of modernization in Korea and Japan, you may think that Japanese and Korean government played a crucial role, and bureaucrats were very important actors, and government actively invested and supported some export and trade-oriented companies in both countries, right? So a group of theorists actually tried to make a theory of East Asian development with the name of developmental state. State in East Asia the purpose of the state was development, right? What is the purpose of government in African countries? Saudi Arabia, religious, or feed dictators? Of course, Japanese and Korean politics was not, Western style democracy, but at least the members of the government were very patriots, put national interest first, nationalism, strong nationalism. This actually motivated the government workers in both countries. So under these kind of circumstances, a new theory, what is called developmental state theory, emerged by the several scholars in the West. So let's take a look at the theory of developmental state together. So what is the meaning of developmental state? This theory actually described as state-led economic development in East Asia. Japan was the first developmental state, and the other 4 East Asian tigers, including Taiwan, South Korea, Hong Kong, and Singapore. These countries share actually similar type of pattern of economic development, which was state-led economic miracle. In France, they have the similar type of the state-led economy. Dirigism, government played a crucial role in nurturing the economy. So there are some similar terms, but development state is more popular and globally accepted. So developmental state theory is now, unlike the Western capitalism, developmental state actually is quite different from the trajectory of the Western economic development and industrialization. Western economy actually experienced industrial revolution and technological innovation since the 19th century. But developmental state actually depends on the borrowed knowledge. There was no real industrial revolution or technological innovation in both Japan's and East Asian tigers. These countries actually depended upon the borrowed knowledge. They learned from Western experiences and Western market economies. So in developing production technology and capital resources, these countries, East Asian countries, Japan and East Asian tigers, depends on state intervention. State actually controlled imports and introduction of the Western knowledges. Right? So state intervention in the markets of these state-led economies worked exceptionally well to subsidies, monitor, and guide private sector business in achieving growth. There are you can find some common features in developmental state. So centralized banking system and control mechanism of the flow of capital. The governments actually played a role. Major institutions like MITI and EPB actually deal with the flow of the capital, financial resources, industrial policies, and economic matters. They played a crucial role in dealing with these kind of issues. They are all the members of these companies were very nationalistic. Their main concern was how to catch up the advanced economies in very short span of time. How to catch up the advanced economies by when? So they invested a lot of money, efforts, and personal life to achieve this kind of advanced economic status. So that is my lecture about the modernization and development of Japan and South Korea from comparative perspective. Next week, I will actually give a lecture on the bureaucrats and politicians in both countries from a comparative perspective. And there will be a national holiday, Chuseok, on 28th next week. So, but still, you need to watch these LMS video or YouTube video on time. Okay, that will be counted as your attendance. So, because of the time, I need to provide 12 more minutes of the videos. I may make additional video, but main lecture contents about the week is this is the one. Okay, thank you very much.